All right, we're going to jump into it. We're going to start with the Catalans right away because I think it would be cool. These are just questions that I came up with, and I feel like I want to know this. So if you guys, hopefully you want to know what I want to know. But I want to know, how did you guys meet? I want to know the story. And maybe, Karina, you can give us a little bit of backstory to it, because I feel like the wife is always a little bit more like truthful in those. It's like the guy's always like, man, I was just super ripped, and...
Okay, the backstory, I was raised in Sweden, first of all, born there. And people would ask me when I was a little girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I used to say, I want to be a pastor's wife. So, like, really? My parents were in the ministry, but it wasn't an awesome example, so I don't know. But that's what I wanted to be. And then also, when I was young, my mom taught me to pray. She said, be specific with the Lord when it comes to the most important decision in your life. And she said, so pray specifically, but she said, whatever you do, always end that prayer with, but Lord, I want your will to be done, not mine. So part of the prayer, I'm not going to say, was, Lord, please let me meet my right man at an early age. Yeah. I was so afraid of a broken heart. I don't know, a little girl, didn't want to be hurting. So I met Brandt when I was 12. He was 14. Wow. Yeah, and he was the son of a preacher man. Is that it? He was the pastor's son in the city, and so everybody had told me, you have to meet our pastor's son. And so I remember my first words to him were, because I'd seen him earlier, was, you live here? Like, this is your home? This is your home church? Like, I was really excited. But I was really upset when I went home because I told him that I was 12 and a half. And when I went home, I thought, why did I say 12 and a half? It sounded so immature. I should have just said 12 and left it at that. So, anyway, yeah, we grew up. We've known each other. We just had our 39th wedding anniversary.
Oh!
Next year's 40.
That's incredible.
And I did the math. We've known each other for 47 years.
Wow.
So thankful, so thankful. And I know you wanted to know, saw some notes. We have 4 children, all in ministry, full-time ministry, and we have 13 grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyway, do you want to add?
That's incredible.
You know, when you hear those numbers of how long we've known each other, how long we've been married, you know, it's like a long time. What I wanted to say is that I love my wife today more than I loved her the day I married her.
Come on.
Our relationship is deeper, and we're just in a little bit of a season right now. We went out for a hamburger last night, and I held both her hands in the restaurant, and I looked in her eyes, and I said, I love you so much. Wow. So just know.
I know. Tissue ministry, anyone?
Just know that in God, when you walk in His ways, when you let Him work in your life, that relationships are intended to get better and better and better, and we're a testimony to that. So that's all.
That's incredible. All right, that was so much better than even just what I thought it would be. We're gonna go to pastors here, and I know you guys know a lot about them because, or at least from what pastor says on a Sunday from an illustration. So I kind of feel like I'm gonna go just first start with Pastor Natasha on this one. Let her get. There's a little cheer. There you go. And this was actually an icebreaker you guys just did at your ladies' small group.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like my wife, this is the question, and then I'll let her give a chance to it. The question is, what's your biggest pet peeve of each other? Oh, we're going there, okay?
How do we go from like a love story?
Yeah, love story. I know, sorry. It's not like roast. It's not roast time, but I just felt like it would be a good time just to give opportunity for you to kind of go there. The thing is, I'm just kind of setting the stage. After this, you know, Mandy and you are co-leading this with Jess as well, and we're driving home, and she literally told me, she's like, yeah, I had like a whole laundry list of pet peeves.
It's so true.
I was like, it like opened up like a whole thing for us. So maybe we'll just do one. We'll just do one, okay?
It's so hard to just choose one.
Uh,
like I could, what if I did them fast? And then it would only count as...
Okay, well, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, oh, fix the shed. Yeah, it's so true. I have a posse of people who have pet peeves on my behalf. Okay. I'm trying to think of ones that haven't been mentioned in sermons before. Like aside from not taking out the garbage or not closing on any of the cupboards. Like this is like I come downstairs in a morning, and if he stays up later than I do, and I honestly think that we've been robbed. Every single cupboard is opened. Like I'm like, what were you looking for? And it's like some imaginary food was gonna pop out of the cupboards. I don't understand why, like, when you can use the last bit of toilet paper and not, like, at least tell me. We're out in here. Like, it's all
so
gone,
guilty of
all
that.
the toilet paper is gone. And then I go in and there's no toilet paper left. But I think that the best, because it happened this morning as well, is that, like, after you don't even know what you did this morning. He runs in the morning, which is awesome, but he leaves his dirty laundry on the floor in the washroom. But like we have a double sink. I'm gonna stand up for this. And so he's double sink, dirty, sweaty, nasty clothes, and it's pushed over in front of my sink. When I got in there this morning, your nasty clothes, I'm sorry, and then I just kick them across, and I think that you're gonna deal with it when you get home. There you go.
Oh, man. All right.
I know. You don't get a turn.
Come on, man.
1 minute.
Okay. As long as we're talking about dirty, nasty clothes. It's on. There are always two piles of clothes in our washroom. Yes, I leave a pile in front of her sink. The reason I do that is because if this, I don't understand. I will come forward. I don't understand. See, I'll unpack my process for you. The shower's here, her sink is there. It's like as you're entering the shower, the logical place to throw it's like the closest wall that you can get them up against, okay? Here's what I don't get.
So
is that just imagine the toilet. This is like all bad.
Okay, we're imagining.
Okay, for some reason, multiple days worth of your dirty clothes end up. There's a pile, an ever-growing pile right beside the toilet. At times will come up knee height. That's not even a pet peeve, that's just a rebuttal on...
That's like a mic drop.
So what you're saying is you create your own pile just so Natasha doesn't feel as bad.
I'm trying to make her feel,
So
yeah.
It's actually love.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's
so
right.
that's as loving as holding her hands across the table while you're eating a burger
Absolutely.
and saying, I love
Receive
you
it.
so much. It is.
So you guys, the moral of this, if you see something as a pet peeve, just up the ante of your pet peeve. Just take it to the next level. Okay, Sam and Jess. Tim is from Aussie, and he said to us many times, even from stage, I think he said once that the accent of heaven is going to be Australian, right?
No.
No?
You don't like it?
That's what he said.
No.
All right.
I don't like this shit.
You don't want to go there? Okay. He's just super proud of where he's from. I think, you guys have lived in Canada how long now?
13.
13 years. Come on. But there's got to be still some stuff that you miss, like some things that you long for. What would be a few of them? Just give us a kind of a glimpse into maybe there's some of the things that, like, it might be a food, it might be a smell, it might be something that's happening.
I don't know. I don't miss it. I love Canada, baby.
Whoa, come on. See, that was really just a test. You passed.
So the humor, yeah, totally. Radio, morning radio is a thing in Australia.
Oh, really?
And So I
Like
missed
news
that.
radio, or like what kind of like radio? Like what are you talking
Wait,
about?
it's just. Anyone heard of Hamish and Andy? No one. Check out the podcast. Hamish
I thought
and
you were just
Andy.
speaking in tongues for a second there, so.
But and then it's the humor, funny. But honestly, I just I love Canada.
That's
I
amazing.
just really do.
That's
I
awesome.
really do. And when you get on a flight and go to Australia and you're surrounded by the accent, it actually makes my ears bleed. So like,
Man, he loves Canada.
it's too much. It's too much. It's all like nose and everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. He was
Nice.
repeating everything I was whispering in his ear.
Nice.
But yeah, the humor, and it's true, when you get on a plane, it's just horrendous. And the attitude, Australians have terrible attitudes. We're not nice people. We send all the nice people over here, so you think we're really nice, but actually, we're not.
Tim hates us now. It's true, man. No customer service in Australia.
It's true. Anyway, we love Canada. Yeah,
That's incredible. Okay, we're gonna get into it a little bit deeper here. Now, I think it's good to get to know you guys, and we're gonna kind of keep expanding as we go. Make sure you guys text me some questions going in. I think we got a few coming in here. I'm gonna keep checking my phone as we go here. There's a lot, so make sure that I get to them. But we're gonna go over to Pastor Brandt here, and this whole conference phrase, "Be ready to pray, preach or die," came out of a conversation just in passing upstairs in the office. And you had mentioned to me that it was something that reminded you of the early days of ministry, kind of like an old school phrase. And there was something there that when you said it, and I kind of feel like the question is, like, what does that phrase mean to you? What is that phrase, like, how has that phrase even shaped you? How has that come alive in your own life? To be ready to pray, preach, or die?
It was a phrase my dad used to use. So my dad was a pastor evangelist from a family of evangelists, and they used that phrase. And I think the key thing is that it's about the readiness of the gospel, to be ready to pray, to be ready to share, to witness, to testify, to be ready to die. And it's about the urgency, about the immediacy. So, truthfully, it hasn't been, like a big part of my mindset. What it does is it just reminds me of the commitment of my father's generation and that generation. In that time, my dad was a part of a group of people who just, when the Holy Spirit started moving in the prairies, after Azusa Street, Winnipeg was the first place where the Spirit was poured out in Canada. And they just got in cars and drove west and drove east with a commitment to plant a church in every town on the Trans-Canada Highway.
That's incredible.
That's just what they did, So they were just ready. And so I think that's what it means, that readiness. So, and when you look at the city around us, there's a lot of people that are not ready to die. And so that keeps us focused on what our mission is.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That's such a convicting statement to just think we're just gonna go in one of the busiest roads in Canada and just start planting churches. And just that reminder of where's the places that are just opportunities in our life where we can bring the gospel to. That sometimes we overthink it, right? We try to overthink where we need to go, and I think that's incredible. I'm gonna go over to Pastor Natasha here. And, we even already have a few questions coming in with you ladies in here. And I think this will be kind of like a question that we'll do afterwards. But to get you kind of going on this, the question that was asked is, this is questions for the wives. How do you know God's call to be a pastor or to step into ministry? What did your walk in obedience look like? And I think that kind of plays in alignment with that pray, preach, or die statement. How did you, maybe even recently, but also in the past, make that decision to step into the call? And if we'll first start with you, Pastor Natasha, and we'll give an opportunity for Jess, for Karina as well.
Sure. I think that, in my family, I'm blessed to have generations of believers. And that was a foundation foundational part of my life. I was involved in church young. Something that Pastor Sam said last night, if you didn't catch it, but he said that when he started working at C3 Calgary, you worked 3 days a week, but you served 7. And I think that the call of God to ministry, because everybody has a call of God to ministry. It's not just those that have a vocation in the church. I consider myself blessed some days that this is my vocation. Other days it would be easier to go back to waitressing or working at a construction company, I think. But there's something to that. Every place that I looked at as my place of ministry. Right. And this phrase, pray, preacher, die, it's funny, my kids caught it this week that's kind of the catchphrase, and my son said, Mom, if you don't pray and if you don't preach, then you're going to die. And I was like, I don't know if that's exactly what we're going for. But truly, I think about what Jonathan shared on Sunday and how we have a weak culture. We have a weak country. We have a weak society that we are generations removed from. Even Pastor Brandt, you're sharing about your father, those that took giant leaps of steps of faith for the faith to break ground in our country. And like, I'm excited that we planted Experience Church 8 years ago, but that's not the be-all and end-all of what God is calling us to and what we have to stand up for. And so as an Enneagram 6 who worries like crazy, COVID has been a challenge for me to really just surrender my ultimate fear of like, man, are we gonna die doing this? And I know that sounds so huge, but I don't think we're far removed from that, like the persecution of the church being rampant in our country. We have freedoms that we didn't have to fight for, and I think that we might have to fight for them soon. And so I think of what Paul said is to live as Christ, to die as gain, but that has to really become part of my DNA, and that's hard to do, but it really means surrendering. It's surrendering what you thought your life was going to look like, surrendering at whatever age, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 50, whatever, 60, and just saying, God, you're not done yet. Anyway, sorry. I'm going off. But
She's preaching. She's preaching.
As a woman or a man, I'm kind of tired of feeling like a woman shouldn't want to be all in. Get all in. We need you to be all in.
Come on. That's amazing. Let's go over to Karina here, and let's talk a bit about like breaking that down a bit more, even in like the practical rhythms. And I think I want kind of the response from Karina and from Jess on this, because I think there's a longevity, there's kind of the life experience that comes with you, Karina, and also, a younger mom and in ministry and things growing and things moving forward. What does it look like to move forward in revival, and even also taking care of like that personal family revival, that revival at home? How do you balance that rhythm of believing for more in your church, but believing for more in your kids?
Well, I was reminded this morning how much fun revival was. Like when we were in our robes and doing those actions, our kids were all in. Like they weren't embarrassed. They saw how real it was. And keeping it real at all times is so important, especially with our families, with our kids. We were blessed, and they wanted to know who was going to church first. That's of the two of us. That's who they would go with. And whoever was going home last, that's whoever they would go home with. So, but rhythms, I was thinking of it this morning. There were times that we had no boundaries. Like there were times there was no balance. We were just all in. But I think and then there were times, there were seasons. There were always seasons. I remember having young babies, and I felt like everything was going ahead of me, without me, kind of thing. And the Lord gave me a scripture just to put it in perspective, and it was, that he gently leads those who are with young. And I just said, you're okay. You're still leading,
Wow.
but it's at a little more gentle pace, things like that. But then there's what keeps you mentioned longevity. When I look back, I think, oh, but by the grace of God, because God gives us the grace, but there's just always a hunger for more. And never stop looking and hungering for more, hunger for more of God. There's always more. And always in order to, I look at this, be ready to pray, preach, or die. The readiness, we're almost never feeling ready. We never almost feel like completely equipped. And there were times where I felt like more was needed of me. And I'll give this one little example. It's just about longevity and
Absolutely.
one time I knew there was a more challenging season ahead, and I felt like I wasn't ready. I felt I was not maybe equipped just for what. And in my mind, I was looking for gifts to just come, equipping to come. Maybe a new preaching gift and maybe more prophetic. And so anyway, I landed on, thankfully, where I almost always land was. Just, Lord, you do in me what you need to do. You change my heart. You allow me to grow into what I need to be. And the answer was completely unexpected. I'm not one that cries easily. I don't cry easy. I never cry a lot, right? He cries. No. But I began to weep. And I knew it was, like, this is over weeks. But I knew that it was in answer to my prayer. And I felt as though the Lord just said, hey, all you need is compassion.
Wow.
You need to love these people. You need to love me, love these people. And, they need Jesus. So hunger for more, love, be ready in seasons. There are times we need to pull back and rest. We weren't great at that, but we're here. We're still here. Anyway,
That's great.
went on.
That's incredible. Jess, how could you add on to that the rhythms that you find as a mother, as a pastor, as a leader, as one that has unique callings and giftings,
Yeah, sure. I love what both of you guys have said, and I would say my answer would probably be a combination of both of those. The willingness to die to self. I think it's very it's not cool in our society. It's not practiced very much in our culture. It's very self. How can I get ahead? How can I advance my career? How can I keep moving forward? How can I be the best I can be? And it's flipping that on its head. It's not what it's about. It's not about being able to do more at the church so that you can do more at the church. It's all about laying our lives down and letting go and actually dying to self, like these mugs are saying, and being willing to die in the process. That comes into our calling, that comes into our relationships, it comes into raising our children. So for me, I didn't want to be in ministry. I grew up with parents that were planning churches and they were not good and they were fails, and my parents ended up divorcing when I was a teenager. And so for me, I was like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And then I fell in love with this incredible, amazing man, and he told me his vision for his life. And then I thought, that's okay, I'm really gorgeous and he loves me a lot and I can change his mind. But God had other plans. He used him, and he used all sorts of situations I actually had to die to my own plans of what I thought I had for my life. But the incredible thing is when we die to that, he actually resurrects who we're supposed to be on the inside. And I feel more alive than ever in this calling that I always thought I didn't want is actually what I wanted. And to do with the rhythm side of things, I'll just quickly touch on this because I am in a very unique season with an 8-month-old, 4 and 6, which I think a lot of you probably are, because that kids ministry is like bumping out there. In Toronto, it's like there's like no children, no one's having kids, which is part of the selfish stuff that we'll talk about. But anyway, it's a unique season, and I felt like God gave me this picture because I love that you use the word rhythms, because a lot of the time people use the word balance, and I don't think that that's true. I don't think we can balance our lives to a point that it works. It just doesn't work like that. But rhythms is a really interesting picture, and I grew up dancing, and so I grew up, learning choreography and learning how to do it and performing on stage. And I got this picture actually from God that He wants us, when we're in our rhythm, to actually be ballroom dancing, which sounds very old school, but it's very different to like that dancing where you learn the choreography. And a lot of us are trying to learn how to do life well, and we're trying to do all the right steps and perform the right way. And I felt Him say, that's not what I want. I just want you to lean in. And the thing with ballroom dancing is you do need to know the steps to some extent, but what actually creates a great ballroom dancing is leaning into the partner and is leading into their leaning.
That's so good.
And so the goal is actually not to learn each style of dance. The goal is to learn your partner and how to like lead with them. And so
I'll preach.
So this is a whole new revelation
So
for
good.
me. I'm preaching to myself in this season. But it felt like before COVID, it was like this foxtrot. Like we were like going so fast and everything was happening. But I was trying to lean into God. And then COVID hit, and it was like all of a sudden it was this slow waltz. And it was like all of a sudden He was stopping and He was dropping me and going, look at that over there. Be appreciative of that. Or look, I want you to work on
That's
this.
incredible.
And so I think we can flip our mindsets to stop trying to be the best we can be and just focus everything we can on learning who we're following and learning to hear His voice so that we know what to do in each season.
Wow. That's amazing.
Does that help?
Man, that's an incredible picture. And we're gonna switch on over to Pastor Brandt here, and Pastor Brandt, we've heard in staff environments, I've heard through even Pastor Jonathan before you even shared them to us, the stories of revival that have come even from you pastoring, but also the ministry of you being able to travel around the globe and seeing God moving in miraculous and signs and wonders ways that some of us are just unaware of. We haven't ever experienced. Some of that sounds like that's a good story, but we know that you have had firsthand experience of seeing things that we would read and we would think it's clickbait on Facebook, that we just wouldn't believe that it's real. And I just want to I know you could probably spend 2 hours diving into the stories, and that's not a bad thing because there's just been so many of them. Maybe in just a few minutes, you could highlight a couple of those stories, I think, to really strengthen our faith as we're believing we're in a season of revival here, and encouraging us that there is the miraculous, there is greater that God wants to do in our city and through this team.
Well, one of the moments was my friends, pastors, missionaries from Ethiopia came to our church, and we were not in a season of revival. And this was such a shock to me. Sitting on the front row, it was a Saturday night service. It was a terrible service. It wasn't going well. There's like 120 people, no, maybe 100 in our auditorium that seats 1,400, and they're asleep and bored, and it was just, I'm like, anyway, it's, pastors sometimes have to overcome those things. So these people from Ethiopia were sharing, and the wife, Val Rutten, she stood up. And I guess what this was just sort of a confrontation of the limitations that I had put on God, and a challenge that, do you believe that God can do anything? Or do you God can do anything theoretically, but not, anything. And so she said, we have had a wonderful time in Ethiopia. God is doing miracles. And the thing that I should say is the people that I'm going to tell you about, they know them personally. I've met the guy I'm going to tell you about right now. We sent out a young evangelist, she said, into one of the villages to hold a seminar and to preach the gospel. And as he was preaching the message, he was preaching on Lazarus rising from the dead. And he was not a Bible college grad. He was just a young man learning as an evangelist, preaching about Lazarus rising from the dead. As he's preaching, there's a commotion at the back. The audience was a few thousand people. They're all in a field and under trees. And someone ran up to the front and said, brother, this is such a wonderful message that you're preaching. We're just so blessed to hear that God raises the dead because someone has just died in the meeting. And we want you to come and raise him from the dead.
That's a rough preach if someone's dying.
Yeah.
Well,
so the story goes that his knees began to tremble, and he literally, before he went to where the dead person was, looked for his way of escape. Because in Ethiopia, if you're proven to be a false teacher, they will actually throw rocks at you and literally stone your car. So he goes and he just prayed a simple prayer in the name of Jesus. Whatever he said, rise up, and then he ran. He ran away. He just ran away, and
pray,
there
preach,
was
and run.
commotion and screaming, and as he's running back to the platform, people are chasing him, and he thinks he's in trouble. Well, the person was raised from the dead, came back to life in the meeting.
Wow.
And so, just like all of you are struggling right now, right, going, man, I don't know that I've seen that very often. And some of you are thinking, yeah, well, he was just mostly dead, not, It's from Princess Bride, if you recognize it.
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking that.
Just mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
So I'm sitting on the front row, and I'm absolutely confronted by my limitations that I put on God. And so I would say, so then I've met the young man who preached the sermon about Lazarus. I met him in Ethiopia. He told me the story. So God has to shake our sophistication and our, sort of explaining everything away. Revival means you go back to the Word of God, and if it's there, Jesus says that you will do greater things, that we have to take that as a fact. Not as some Canadian qualified thing that we can soften it and morph it. And if Jesus talks about hellfire and brimstone, that's what it is. Or else, why are you following him? So revival means you get radical enough that you're willing to believe that he can heal the sick, he can cast out demons, he can deliver addicts from their addictions, he can restore marriages. There's nothing that our God cannot do. That's a revival spirit.
That's
and
incredible.
The revivals of history, they always start with a few people who get on their face with the Word of God and say, if it's here, then it can be in my life and in my city, whether it's in Toronto or Los Angeles or Calgary.
Man.
If it's in the Word, it can be in my life.
That's incredible. That's incredible. We're going to go on over to Pastor Jonathan here, and obviously hearing from Pastor Brandt. And Pastor Jonathan was on staff with you years back. And I think there's a couple things we can do. This could be like a two-stage question. One, you must have some type of funny story from being on staff under him. Maybe not. Maybe something that, I don't know. Well, they're doing a lean there.
Nothing about laundry, right?
Maybe not. But I think the bigger, you can decide what you want to do. The bigger lead in on this is that we see with Pastor Brandt that you've leaned in as he is your spiritual father. And we see that mantle on your life, Pastor Brandt, as a father for so many young leaders in our nation, so many people who have planted churches, so many people who are in ministry, so many people have calling. We see it even in our own staff. And I see it the most between you and Pastor. And there's something just incredibly important about that needed right now, where there's spiritual parents for like a fatherless and motherless generation. And so I think for you, Pastor Jonathan, how did you get to this place with that? I think it's important. How did you seek that out?
Can I answer the funny one first?
Yes, you can.
Okay. There's a few, and some of them are pretty inside. So I don't know, there are names that I could drop and we would laugh the entire afternoon. So only us two. So there's a couple. I think one of the funniest moments, couple things. One, I was a worship pastor, and so it was just funny because I knew if I was leading, if I started leading the service, the chances of me finishing leading the service were not high, especially early. Because the likelihood of him coming over to the piano and be like, I got something, don't worry, and just leading the rest was... So I don't know, I'm surprised that I stayed on as long as I did. And we laugh about it now. I knew in the moment that the Lord was teaching me humility, and I would laugh about it later. It's a good lesson. Okay, but here's the funny one. Do you remember when I came and asked you if I could get a tattoo? Let me remind you.
Oh man, this is good.
I had no tattoos, but I really felt the Lord was speaking to me about marking my body for Him, and so I came into and I just wanted to be respectful, and I came and I said, hey, I'm just thinking about getting a tattoo, but I didn't want to surprise you with it. And you said, you know what? I think that's a great idea, as long as you put it on your butt. That's the answer. Like,
That's amazing.
You can tattoo anything you want on your butt. And I think you used the word butt, I'm not sure. You said anything you want. And I just said, okay. And that was the end of the conversation.
That's
and I walked
brilliant.
out. And then, I think the day after...
Show us.
It's one of his preaching quotes. That's what I put there, so that I'd always remember it. I think it was just I think the day after my last day on staff, I called and made an appointment for my first tattoo. So that's a fun one. I think to the fathering question, that's a big question, and at the core of it is the knowledge that you will never lead if you're not being led. You can't lead if you're not being led. And I think there's something in there's something in a spirit of leadership that the devil tries to use that makes you think you've got all the best ideas and you can do it on your own. And you know what the world needs is what you have to offer, and all these things. There's this independent spirit in the heart of a leader, and that's good because in leadership there's a lot of moments, in fact most of it, where you're going it alone. But there's also the reality that the devil tries to use that to make you think that you don't need anybody, that you don't need accountability, that you don't need correction, and you don't need direction. And so just to know, if you really want to lead, you have to be led. And when we started on the journey of leadership in our church, and so there was relationship. I think a good father-son relationship, especially spiritually, starts with respect. Wow. And so I got to watch Pastor Brandt weep for the nation. We got to watch him preach, and every time he would preach, people would get saved, and I'd be like, Lord, I want that to happen someday in my life. I want to have that kind of impact. So there's that respect. But then when you find somebody you respect, then you have to lean in and you have to show honor. And then you show honor, and then you've got the ability to make an ask. And I remember calling you after our church began, or right in the early days, and you were pastoring at CLA and you were busy, there's lots going on. And I was over in Deerfoot Meadows by IKEA, and I said, hey, I need leadership. Would you consider being an overseer for our church? And we had talked about it. I was terrified you were going to say no because of the tattoo thing. But you didn't. And we're so grateful. And I think not only can you not lead if you're not being led, but you need people who are going to call you out. Even just a couple of weeks ago, we were together away preaching. And it's kind of funny because when you're preaching like that, everyone's like, man, you're amazing. And it's just the vibe when conference is going well. But then we were driving in the car after the last session, and you were like, hey, just a thought. And you challenged me on something that I needed to hear.
Wow.
And you need those people in your life. You need those relationships. You need the people that are going to say, hey, yeah, you're awesome. But this right here, that's going to ruin you if you keep doing that. Wow. And that happened even in our relationship 3 weeks ago. and it's changed my approach, my outlook in the last few weeks. So you need those relationships.
Wow.
So I love you, honor you, respect you, grateful for you, but you need those relationships.
Right. That's incredible. All right, guys, we're going to go. We got about 10 more minutes. You guys good for about 10 more minutes? If you were going to say no, I'm just going to still do it anyways. So it didn't really matter. Pastor Sam, I want to head on over to you. We know that there's a strong gift of leadership development on your life. We've chatted about it, Pastor and I. We've seen it, you with the deposits you've put into our team. We've seen the fruit of that through C3 Toronto. We've seen it, even in the C3 movement in Canada and abroad. There's clearly a mantle of leadership on your life where you can just bring such practical teaching to it. I know you're just loving this, right? And but it's true though. We do mean it, and we see it. And I think that the question is...
You don't have to make this a question. You can just keep
going, yeah. And we got 9 more minutes. So I think the question is, you're a pastor of a similar size church in a different city, and I want to kind of flip the role here. If you know that there's some things that you would like if Pastor Jonathan can come and can say from stage to the leadership team of your church, that's a little bit challenging maybe for you to say it. Maybe what would be one of those things from a leadership bomb that you could just share to us that we know that we wish we could be sharing, we could go to, but I just want you to kind of go for it. This is your opportunity to be like, hey, this is where I see, if I was talking to my own leadership team, just straight up, this is where I feel like I would give some tips I would give some encouragement and some stuff.
Yeah. Pray, preach, or die. Leadership development. So assuming the goal is more fruitfulness.
More fruitfulness, moving into the season of revival.
Leadership development.
Yeah.
Right. So if I could think about what I believe is the core of why the local church exists in mission, obviously it's Matthew 28, which is go and make disciples. So there's a development and a deployment that we've been talking about in conference, which is, it's kind of flipping the church upside down where the fivefold ministry are pushing people up and out to do ministry in our context, because we are all saints and we're all ministers. So with that in mind, and knowing Pastor Jonathan and Natasha's heart to have as much impact as possible and as much fruit as possible, we get it wrong when we accuse the church that we just want growth, we just want bums in seats, and it's some sort of egomania, and that's not what it's about. Right. Bums in seats mean more opportunity for more people to be developed and deployed. Yes. Right. So it's greater opportunity for Canada to be reached if there are more bums in seats on Sunday. Yeah. So it's a means to an end, it's not the end. Sunday is not the end. Sunday is the starting line.
Wow, so good.
And the end is the cause for eternity. So with all that in mind, I think the greatest leadership development formula in Scripture, which is Timothy being a true son of the faith, would be 2 Timothy. I don't know if you guys can throw it up quick. 2 Timothy 2 verse 2 is you should write that down. 2 Timothy 2 verse 2. There is so much leadership development and multiplication packaged in one single verse.
Wow.
It says, the things you heard me say, there's 4 levels of leadership in one verse. The things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to, the first adjective, reliable people who will be able to teach others. So there's me, you, reliable people, others. There's 4 levels of leadership.
Write that down.
And now I'm just going to spit a few little things here. So
that's awesome.
So the challenging word that I would want Pastor Jonathan and Natasha to say in our church is be reliable.
Good.
Wow. Yeah.
Is be reliable. What does that mean, Pastor Sam? So glad that you asked that question. So the things you heard, this is all leadership keys that we're looking for in developing and deploying the right people. It's all about the right people. And so the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses is vision. What vision are you hearing? So I would ask you the question, what is EC's vision? What I'm looking for is, does it parrot what's in their heart? So the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, when Pastor Jonathan and Natasha are spitting vision all the time in a public arena, you ought to be leaning into the heartbeat of that so that you can run hard like Habakkuk 2 says to run hard in the vision. So it's are you hearing the right things? And as you're developing team, you're wondering, are they hearing the right things? Not a split vision, not running off on their idea of what EC's vision is, but it's not actually EC's vision. So the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, that's where it starts, vision. Okay, then it says, entrust to reliable people. So reliability is all about being faithful with the little so that you can be ruler over more. It's stewardship. It's a trust exchange. God wants to trust you with more. And this is all part of this trust exchange in reliability. So being a true son of the faith, Timothy needs to be able to see the right people. Because we always choose in churches low-hanging fruit. Gifted people, like someone comes in, they're shiny, they're gifted, but they've got a character deficit. So they're not reliable because they've got too much ego in their gifts. So we've got a great keyboard player and we focused on them and we liked them, but we developed and deployed the wrong person because they weren't truly surrendered to their faith in Jesus. So they weren't reliable anyway. They were just really gifted because it's more about character. So leadership is this. Are you hearing the vision? Are you hearing the right vision? Can you find and identify the right people? So Pastor Jonathan and Natasha want you identifying the right people. Do you have that eye for developing the right people? And then can you actually lead through other people, which is the fourth level? So being a true son is entrusting to reliable people, that trust exchange, who are able to teach others. So at the end of all this development of leadership and having just fruit being spun out of experienced church in crazy multiplication levels, is that last thing of like, Timothy knows he's entrusted to reliable people who are teaching others. Leadership is tested more in your absence than in your presence. So if you're developing the right people, how good is the ministry when you're not there? So if you are doing everything really well, which I believe you are, because like we're sitting in this right now, that Pastor Jonathan and Natasha would see true sons and daughters of the ministry, hearing the heart of the vision, identifying the right people, developing that vision in them so that they would teach other people so that they can be replacing their role all the time. It's not role possession, it's role, like, how do I give off what I've got, responsibility and delegation. And then when you get those cycles, those 4 levels of leadership happening, like that reliability, and it's spinning out of this place, you will plant 20 churches in the next few years across Canada. And that's just the beginning of that, like that revolving, spinning development and deployment of 2 Timothy 2 verse 2. If that essentially takes place here, which it is already, but if it's not just one man and one woman doing it, if it's this core team, if everyone was reliable here to take the vision, hear it, know it, be a true son, develop and deploy it, and spin it out to the point where you don't even need to be present in it, then revival, like Canada, is changed. EC is shifting the entire nation like wildfire. That is leadership deployment.
Man, what a way to wrap this up.